Right, so in 2010, it was an era of lots of protest against the corporate neo-colonial empire. And at the G20 protest in London, after all that bank bailout, too big to fail, all that shit, this happened.
Mr. Tomlinson is shoved to the ground by a police officer.
Right, so, okay, fascist, brutal, mercenary pig. And the guy died from that fall. So Charlie Veitch comes onto the scene, onto the world stage. He's on the BBC here.
Cordon, but I am joined by somebody who was there. So can you tell me what you saw?
Yeah, I think in any confrontation, truth is the first casualty.
So that's a mockery. Mocking you.
I just want to clarify the reports I saw from this morning. He was not in his mid-30s. He was a gentleman who seemed to be over 50. He was riddled with tattoos, and from the smell of him, he'd been drinking all day, and his eyes were very wide, as if he was under the influence of drugs.
What about the actual police? That we
police
can't speculate about the condition of the gentleman, but
Yeah.
what is at issue here is the way the police handled it.
I think I came along at 6:30 last night, and the police seemed to be acting very professionally. There was no overkill, no beatings, and the only reason this gentleman collapsed is because the police ran forward maybe 20 meters at a time, and then he ran off as well, and I saw him collapse and smash his head, and then he was lying there with his eyes wide open, and then a guy in the audience had a megaphone and shouted, "Police, we need a medic," and within seconds the police had a team of 8 people ran forward, and yeah, there was a couple of people throwing bottles and bricks.
Were you taking part in the protest? What were you doing there?
I'm a city worker. I was there out of interest, of curiosity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so Veitch is playing a role here. He's all suited up. He's giving the posh perspective, defending the pigs, claiming to be a city worker. So that's a role, because he'd also been posting hundreds of YouTube videos as an outside-the-box anarchist guy, joining in with lots of the protests with a megaphone. So what's going on? Yeah, here he is. He goes on to an alternative truth of the channel and gives a different story. But, you know, it's all very dodgy, but totally different character, this one.
I hesitate almost to bring it up, but I understand that last April at the G20 in London, you saw a pretty horrific event. Do you want to talk about that?
Of course, yeah, no, quite happily. I was a witness to the IPCC, which stands for the Independent Police Complaints Commission.
So after getting himself on the telly, he managed to become a witness. But he's doing that in the role of a businessman. But listen to this.
There was a middle-aged man, his name is Ian Tomlinson, who the whole world saw the police kill him. They killed him.
Not what he said to the BBC.
I had the chance to speak to him twice in the minutes before he was killed. I unfortunately did not have my camera with me, but I had my megaphone. And
Hang on, is a businessman with a megaphone? No. He's claiming here that he was a protester with the megaphone. He might have been. Who knows what the real Charlie Veitch is? But there's 2 characters here. Protester with a megaphone, posh businessman in a suit. Pro-cops, anti-cops. You see the picture? It's quite simple.
Ian Tomlinson was there, just like the rest of us, to express his disgust at the machine-like globalization we're all being subjected to. And also, he was there to express his disgust at how the police actually create riots.
So, who is the real Charlie Veitch? Is he playing a role now, look, being all like pro-Britain?
Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves!
When previously he was saying the exact opposite years ago about, oh, it's a neo-colonial financial empire that is doing its best to lie to everyone to create excuses to bomb brown people in Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Libya, etc. So which is the real Charlie Veitch? Here he is next to a cop car, and he gets away currently, goes around Manchester kicking crackheads and all sorts, gets away with it. And in fact there's a video on, you'll find it in the bowels of YouTube, it's hard to find, but there's one where there's a copper, I think on a tram or something, asking him for a selfie in uniform. WTF. The mind boggles. He's also been on, as well as his BBC interview that was there earlier, he's always also been involved with the BBC with a mini documentary and interviews, and he was also on another documentary. I think the BBC were involved because he got involved with David Icke at one point, and he was spouting all this. The world we live in is a hologram matrix. It's not real, and we are all fragments of God or something. Some really like modern wackadoodles, digital science, twisted version of ancient Hinduism. Just like, no. Anyway, he was into all that, and then he said, oh yeah, 9/11's an inside job, and well, Building 7 collapsing, being announced 20 more minutes before it did collapse by the BBC, is a smoking gun of something is wrong. But then he denounced all of that, having appeared again on a TV documentary with, I think, some involvement of the BBC and some American telly thing. Like, the whole thing stinks with this guy, but he does put a lot of time into his videos. He drives around in a Tesla, even though he's not into the green agenda or anything. But anyway, I suppose some people might buy a Tesla if they were stupid. But you obviously have to have a lot of money to buy a Tesla, don't you? I don't know. It's, he's potentially an agent. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he's just a grifter. But he's quite clearly never been honest, has he? He'll do anything for a bit of fame. And boosting his YouTube and all that shit. So, yeah. Fool anyone who ever trusts him.
Charlie had a pretty conventional life until he was made redundant from the city